Well, welcome back to our study in the book of Joshua. The theme of our book is Be Strong and of Good Courage. You know that if you've been following along. That was a message given to Moses, but primarily from the Lord to Joshua and the children of Israel. We are already to chapter 18, and today we primarily will be looking at the inheritance of Benjamin. One of the smallest, in fact, the smallest land allotment, and probably one of the smallest tribes. So here we are. We're more than halfway through the book, and then as you can see, we're halfway again after this one as we head for the end of the book, 24 chapters. And today, here is the allotment to Benjamin. All right, here's our map of the 12 tribes. And you can see by the white arrow, it is pointing to the tribe of Benjamin. It's not even big enough to spell it out. And you can see there's some smaller tribes, but none like that. So cities that Benjamin will get is Jericho. And we will be looking at some others very shortly. All right, in this chapter, so what we're looking at, there is a meeting with Joshua and the tribal heads at Shiloh. And I'm going to advance the slide right now. And you can see that is in Ephraim, possibly about halfway point, a little closer towards Joshua and Gibeon and Gilgal. All right, I'm going to go back now. And so what they do at Shiloh is they construct the tabernacle there. Joshua reviews what's happened in land allotment to date. Then Joshua tells the reps or the tribal heads to go to their allotted land and check it all out and report back. And then finally, Benjamin is granted his official allotment at that time. And here we are back again where it is at Shiloh. All right, in prep, when we get into this, let me give you the game plan. I'm going to be reading scripture to you, several of the verses way up front. When we get to Benjamin and the land allotment, the borders are given, and we have the benefit of looking at a map and can see the borders and what surrounds them for the land allotment for Benjamin or any of the tribes. Sometimes it's water is on one side, or a river, mountains, valleys, all sorts of things can define things and make it easy as to who owns this. All right, and what I'm going to do when we get to Benjamin, I'm not going to read all of the borders and the lines that go to here through da-da-da. I'm going to read a little bit, but we're going to go to Benjamin and research one of the cities out of Benjamin and what happened there. And I picked one that's rather fascinating. It's not going to be an obvious one. And then we're going to look at some archaeological excavations, just a few pictures of what's happened and what's going on there. So hang with me. I'm trying to make this exciting, but yet be informative to you and help you to move ahead in this study. Don't give up with me. We're too far to turn back. So let's get right into this very quickly. And I will start reading here. And the whole congregation of the children of Israel assembled together at Shiloh and set up the tabernacle of the congregation there. And the land was subdued before them. It was being held in peace. The word subdued in the Hebrew is kabosh. Have you ever heard say we put a kibosh on that? Well, it means to put down or to put under. And I put the kibosh on you means I shut you up. I put you down. You're not a threat. And so what it's saying is there is no threat, imminent threat in the land. And here is the construction of the tabernacle and the layout and how it would have been. And there is Shiloh, where it was put up in the tribe of Ephraim's land. And there remained among the children of Israel 7 tribes, which had not yet received their inheritance. Joshua said unto the children of Israel, How long are you disheartened or slack to go to possess your land? He said, How long are you going to just kick dust and delay this, which the Lord your fathers has given you? And so you get complacent. And that's what they had happened. And Joshua was putting a burr under their saddle to get them moving. Give out from among you 3 men for each tribe, and I'll send them, and they shall rise and go through the land and describe it according to the inheritance of them, and they shall come again to me. So Joshua sends out 3 men from each of the tribes that do not have their inheritance to look it out, to check out the boundaries, to find out everything's okay, and to come back again. And they shall divide it into 7 parts. Judah shall abide in their coast on the south, and the house of Joseph, which his 2 sons had land, Manasseh and Ephraim, shall abide in their coasts on the north. So let's move on. Next, the leaders of the 7 tribes divide the land in between and meet at Shiloh to divide it up, and so that it's official, it's public, everybody hears it with Joshua. And it goes on to say, Joshua speaking, You shall therefore describe the land into 7 parts and bring the description hither to me, that I may cast lots for you here before the Lord. And so this he does. But the Levites have no part among you, for the priesthood of the Lord is their inheritance. And Gad and Reuben and half the tribe of Manasseh have received their inheritance beyond Jordan on the east, which Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave them. And the men arose and went away, and Joshua charged them that went to describe the land, saying, Go and walk through the land and describe it, and come again to me, that I may here cast lots for you before the Lord in Shiloh. The men did that. They passed through the land and described the cities into 7 parts, and they wrote it down in a book. So they're writing all the boundary lines, describing everything, and came to Joshua to the host at Shiloh, to all the people. And Joshua cast lots for them in Shiloh before the Lord, and there Joshua divided the land unto the children of Israel according to their divisions. Now here's the allotment, which is the rest of the book of Benjamin, the rest of this chapter. It's all about Benjamin, and Benjamin means son of the right hand. Benjamin was the youngster in Israel, and of the 12 tribes of Israel, of Jacob. And here, of course, is the breakout and how all the land will fall out. Some has been divided. And I had one in there with an arrow to Jericho a few slides back. The comment I wanted to make on that is, remember he said Judah to the south, and that Manasseh was to the far north. And it does. Manasseh goes, that's one of the sons of Joseph, that border up there is Mount Hermon, a little bit north of it. Why I had it at Jericho was, remember, that's where they crossed. They crossed the Jordan River there, and that was their first battle that they've done. Take a look at all that the Lord has given them and everything that they were able to accomplish. And so here is a blow-up of Benjamin. You can see the Dead Sea on the right. I have a blue arrow. Let's start on the right in the gray. Do you see Jericho right there? That is Benjamin's land. You're looking at a topography of different of greenery, of valleys and waterways and mountains. And the gray area is a river basin. That still belongs, and Benjamin got all the way to the Jordan River, so Jericho belongs to Benjamin. Then, if you'll notice up high, do you see Bethel there and Ai? Some of these early conquest places. Then I want you to look at something really interesting. Do you see Jebus? The bottom left one. That's the future Jerusalem. Jerusalem is going to drop, not in Judah right now. It will become that later on, I'll explain. And Jebus does not turn into Jerusalem until David names it that and makes that the city of David and the capital of the nation. You can also see while we're there down in the area, you see Bethlehem is in Judah. That's 6 miles away. Excuse me, it's not. It's 12 to 15. And you see the Mount of Olives, and you can see some real interesting places there. All right. I'll move on. I see Gibeah, and I see Ramah. Kirjathjearim has a lot of things in the Bible, and a lot of these cities are very interesting. Can you see why archaeologists never get done? And so I'll let you read this. And the lot of the tribe of the children of Benjamin came up according to their families, and the coast of their lot came forth between the children of Judah and the children of Joseph. So it's in between, remember, north and south, Judah and Manasseh. And so here are some cities that I've just sort of underlined. You see Bethaven. That shows up in many different places. Jericho is here. Here's Bethel. Bethhoron. Look at Kirjathbaal. That's Baal. It's named for the Canaanite god. The Valley of Hinnom is right outside. So you see Jebusi, that's Jebus, or the future Jerusalem. And outside is the Valley of Hinnom. In Jesus' day, that was a valley that was burning. That was a garbage dump where in the Old Testament, the gods that Israel erected to Moloch and to Baal, when they were thrown down, they were burned. And there was a continual fire there when Jesus walked the earth. And he said, you don't want to die and go to Hinnom or to hell. But if you die in your sins, you will. And these are all, you can stop this and read them. Here's Jericho mentioned. Here's the listing of the cities. Bethel, Gibeon, Ramah. There's Jerusalem mentioned. So what did Benjamin get? All right, Jebus, the future Jerusalem, and Bethel I've mentioned because they are the most familiar to us. Bethel we've already looked at, but I went ahead and did this just to jog your memory. It means house of God. Beth always means house. Bethlehem, house of bread. El, with Bethel, Beth, house, El is God. So it's the house of God. And we've toured that city in the past, very early around Jericho, and the Israelites coming into the area. Went along with Ai. But today I'd like us to look at Ramah. And I told you it would be a surprise city, and I enjoyed looking into this. Ramah means height or to judge. And so in its future history, it was built high in the mountains, up on hills for safety, and it became a place of judgment and of judges. And you'll see that in a few minutes. And so even before Israel got there, Ramah was named and means that, and she would fulfill that. All right, so here it is in a real blow up to us. Do you see Jebus straight south along the dotted line, and Mount of Olives? Okay, Gibeon, we know these cities. Ai is to the north right, the north east, with the question mark, because they don't know exactly where it is. And so let's move on. So what has happened in Ramah in the Bible? This is what's fascinating, all right? We know it to be the birthplace, the hometown, and the burial site of the prophet Samuel. That was his headquarters. That's where he would always go back to. What else? Later on in the book of Judges, Deborah, Israel's only female judge, set up headquarters in a location near Ramah to hold court and to settle judgments. Remember what Ramah means? Judge. And so outside of the cities, she would sit, and I want to go backwards to this little map right here. She would sit between Gibeon and Ramah and pass judgment and settle cases. It was the ideal refuge for David when fleeing from Saul to meet up with Samuel. So David, when David's been ordained the next king, but does not take the throne till Saul dies. King Saul hears this and says, I've got to kill him. If I don't kill David, he'll kill me. And so Saul sends his armies, and sometimes Saul chases David. David, when he just needed a breath of fresh spiritual air, would make his way up to Ramah and would meet Samuel there. It was an ideal place. It was a good refuge to hide in. It wasn't easy to get to the city. So it was a good place to guard and say, hey, the army's coming, and David be able to escape. Now here's a story, and let me read it to you, and then you can look at it. The kingdom has divided now. When Solomon dies, his son Rehoboam doubles the taxes, and literally just the empire of Israel is divided. The kingdom is divided. And so you have the north Israel and the south Judah. And all of a sudden now, because of that, there really are no more tribal lines. Now all of a sudden there's 2 nation lines. It'd be like the north and the south of America, although we kept our states, and they broke off according to states. But the tribal lines blurred along the borders immediately. And while Jerusalem was in Benjamin, it blurred so that when it was just Judah was the south, all Benjamin was just basically absorbed in. So that's why Judah has Jerusalem and all the maps that you see with the divided kingdom. So King Baasha of Israel, the north, builds a fortress in Ramah, in Benjamin, to stop people from entering or leaving Judah. All right, keep in mind, Benjamin really belongs down to Judah, but it's a border town. But King Asa, who was ruling in Judah at the time, entered into an alliance with Ben-hadad of Damascus, king of Syria, which was way up north. So a southern king makes an alliance with the north. And when Baasha hears this, that Ben-hadad had attacked and conquered the cities in Israel, he stopped fortifying Ramah and left for Tirzah. Asa then dismantled Baasha's fortress in Ramah. Here's the divided kingdom and the land they got. You can see the northern kingdom is huge. The Assyrians would advance toward Jerusalem by way of Ramah. Sennacherib. Ramah is one of the cities that sounded a warning in Hosea's judgment cry against Israel. Remember, the prophets lived around there. There were schools of prophets up in that area. Where was the tabernacle built? Shiloh, not far away. After Jeremiah had been imprisoned and later thrown into a cistern by King Zedekiah, he was delivered to Ramah and released. When the captives returned from exile in Babylon, Ramah of Benjamin is listed among the places where the Jews settled. During the plight of the Hebrew exiles, the prophet portrays Rachel, way back, the wife of Jacob, as weeping over her children. Ramah, a city in the territory of Rachel's son Benjamin, was in fact populated with her descendants there. And finally, in the New Testament, Matthew applies Jeremiah's words to the weeping in Bethlehem when Herod massacred the children after the birth of Christ. It is the only time Ramah is mentioned in the New Testament. And so the Matthew account says a cry comes out of Ramah, and it's a slaying of the children by Herod. So, can you see how high up we are on a hill? Just look out there a minute, beyond. And this is one of the archaeological expeditions. This is one of the digs going on, the recent ones. Of course, if you don't dig, you can see some of the plants and weeds starting to come back already. Walls, stairwells, lots of stones. Place for water in the forefront there, in the center. And if you go and take a tour, this was a panorama. I was able to fit it by shrinking it a little bit by Bible.Canada, CA. The city, do you see the city walls to the far right? At least walled areas and double fortification to the far right. And you see a big gap in between. And then way up on the hill, you can see excavations going on. There's a back wall to this and everything. But built up high, all of a sudden, there's where some of the houses were. And perhaps this was the agora, the marketplace down Main Street, and the shops would be there. They're still underway and they're still digging. So we don't know much more about Ramah, but it exists. They know this is the real place, and they will find some neat things there. I didn't read really anything of great finds, but to me, anything they dig up is incredible. Keep in mind, it's buried under rock, and for centuries. A lot of centuries when you go back to the Old Testament time. And so what's our takeaway? Well, remember that you had tribes holding back, not taking their land. You had Benjamin not wanting to go into his land. And so Joshua asked a question, how long will you neglect? And so the takeaway that I want you to go back with is, why do we delay? Why do we put off? Why do we procrastinate as Christians? Well, number one, there's fear, and it's usually the fear of the unknown. Well, I don't know. I want to leave my comfort zone and go where I don't know anything about. And so there's fear, there's scare, and there is the unknown in that. And that's just us. That's all of us as humans. Number two, the longer you stay where you are, the harder it is to get out of there. You become content where you lived. They had adapted to the new tent life instead of moving into cities that were theirs. They were literally living in tents and learning how to function. When they had cities, all those cities that I read off or that you could read, they belonged to them. They were empty. They could move right into them. And sometimes in case they had to go and had to move and had to pick up their roots, in honesty, the third thing is why they just procrastinated and neglected everything. They were just tired of fighting. Some of the men had been fighting most of their life, their adult lives. And yes, they could have gone into the land and had to fight a little bit more to keep their land or to drive out some people that snuck back in or were overlooked the first time. And so here's just the encouragement. We as God's people cannot get complacent. We just get nestled right into our churches and get into the status quo and find our niches. We need to be people of faith and that are up to challenges and get out and walk and try something new and get out of our comfort zones. And so that said with you today, I will leave that. Now, thank you for your time, and we'll continue our study, possibly 2 cities next time. And just stay with me, and God bless you.